After the Royal Navy's return to armoured cruisers had taken a little bit of a wobble with the Monmouth class, they'd upgunned to 7.5-inch main guns with the Devonshire class, but then they decided that armoured cruisers would be better off as part of the Royal Navy's fleet screen instead of as big commerce protectors, which had been their previous assigned role, and so the armoured cruiser was upgunned again to 9.2-inch guns with the Duke of Edinburgh class. But these latter ships had their secondary 6-inch battery 2 decks further down than the forward main gun turret, and thus unless the sea was dead calm, it would be almost impossible to operate them. And so the next class, which was originally supposed to be additional ships in the Duke of Edinburgh class, taking the class from 2 to 6 strong, were redesigned. At first, thought was given to simply moving as many 6-inch guns as possible up a deck into twin turrets, placed between the wing turrets of the main armament. This turned out to amount to 2 turrets per side for a broadside of 4 guns, or 8 in total. However, this took place in late 1903 and early 1904, and there was a growing desire at this stage for longer range gunnery in the fleet. Longer range engagements, of course, meant longer range hits, and thus less armour penetration capacity at the time of the hit, as the shell would have lost velocity. And so a bigger gun for the secondary battery was desired. Someone suggested replacing the proposed twin 6-inch turrets with single 7.5-inch turrets, but these heavy power-operated mountings would push the weight of the ships up a little bit. Salvation came in the form of work that was being done on the existing new armoured cruisers that were coming into service from the classes immediately preceding, whose general hull form the current designs were, of course, based on. And this work revealed that the hull was actually a bit lighter than had initially been calculated, and so stability and loading would not be impaired by such a firepower upgrade, and the switch to 7.5-inch secondaries was ordered. The by now completely separate class, dubbed the Warrior class, would therefore carry a main battery of 6 single 9.2-inch guns, 1 fore, 1 aft and 2 on either side, with 4 single 7.5-inch guns, 2 per side, placed between the 9.2-inch wing mounts. 2 dozen 3-pounder anti-torpedo boat guns and 3 single 18-inch torpedo tubes were included, plus some smaller torpedoes for use by the largest of the ship's boats, as it was felt that these might make useful second or third class torpedo boats in a bit of a pinch. All of this was coupled with a pair of vertical triple expansion engines setting 23,000 indicated horsepower to twin screws for a top speed of around 23 knots, with the boilers using a combination of coal and oil spraying. Belt armour maxed out at 6 inches thick, with a deck 1.5 inches thick at its deepest point. The heaviest practical armour found elsewhere was on the turret faces, which were between 7.5 and 8 inches thick depending on your source. Displacement therefore came in at just over 13,200 tons under normal load conditions. 4 ships would be built: Warrior, Cochrane, Achilles and Natal, all of which were laid down at the end of 1903 and the start of 1904, all launched in 1905 and all commissioned in 1907, with the exception of Warrior, which commissioned at the end of 1906. During their service lives, the ships saw relatively few modifications, except for a slight increase in funnel height to keep the smoke away, and a small but ever-changing battery of anti-aircraft guns being installed over the course of World War I. Although they entered service around the time the Invincible-class battlecruisers were in the process of launching, the Warriors were still the second most modern armoured cruisers in Royal Navy service. Only the subsequent Minotaurs were more advanced, and so they were used in a variety of prestige roles until the outbreak of World War I. With the start of the conflict, all but the name ship were in the 2nd Cruiser Squadron, with Warrior being assigned from the Mediterranean to the 1st Cruiser Squadron. While she'd been in the Mediterranean, she'd been part of the abortive interception of the German battlecruiser Goeben. However, the class would suffer 2 losses in the middle of the war. At the end of 1915, the Natal exploded seemingly at random while at anchor, although subsequent investigation revealed the cause had probably been dodgy cordite in her aft magazines. Warrior and Cochrane would then take part in the Battle of Jutland. The latter survived without any real problem, but Warrior would be badly damaged by German capital ships in the same ill-advised engagement by Admiral Arbuthnot that saw the squadron flagship HMS Defence blown up. Later on in the battle, during the night action, another ship in 1st Cruiser Squadron, Black Prince, was blown up by German gunfire as well. Warrior's crew were bought a temporary reprieve due to being circled by an out-of-control HMS Warspite, which understandably attracted a lot of nearby gunfire away from Warrior, but her damage was too severe, and although she was under tow the following day, it was eventually decided to abandon her and she would sink slowly after the surviving crew were evacuated. Ill luck for the class continued as Cochrane went aground at the end of 1918 and broke in two, with only Achilles managing to reach retirement, becoming a training ship for a few years after the end of World War I, before being scrapped in 1921.
That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have a comment or suggestion for a ship to review, let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to comment on the pinned post for dry dock questions.